Thank you, Cliff. So I'm Darcy. Sorry if I didn't get to introduce myself to you. Very happy to be here. Me and my husband, we live downtown, actually just over the railroad tracks, about 3 blocks away. I just want to talk about creative process, share a little bit of my story. How many of you guys would consider yourselves to be an artist? Most of you. No, BJ? No? Okay, so any time that I introduce myself or someone finds out that I'm an artist, 98, I want to say 99% of the time, people respond with, oh, I can never do that. I don't have the artist mind, or I could never think like you. I don't have a creative bone in my body. And it's been almost like an interesting social experiment, and I almost say like I'm an artist to people just waiting for the response that they're gonna have. And so I just think it's so interesting how many of us do not think that we are creative beings. And so many people will say like, oh, well, I don't even have a right side to my brain. And it's like, no, you do have a right side to your brain unless you got it surgically removed. So I want to talk just about, like becoming an artist, what it's like to live a creative life, and what it's like to live in a creative process. So I'm going to take you through kind of my evolution and my journey as an artist. And that response, I get it, because I never considered myself an artist either. Growing up, I was the kid, if you met me, you'd be like, that girl's gonna be a doctor or a scientist, like she's a crazy math science person. So I never ever expected to be doing the work that I'm doing today. I went into college, pre-med, pre-dental. My dad's a dentist. I kind of like was gonna take over my dad's practice and had that plan throughout my whole life. And then sophomore year in college, I just realized I'm not passionate about it. Like, this isn't lighting me up inside. And so I knew I wasn't gonna go to school for that long, get into debt with that much debt, just to get to a point in my life where, I'm at 30, 40, 50 and trying to work as little as possible. So at that moment, I didn't know what to do. I was pretty aimless and took a Drawing 1 course just for graduation requirement. I went to Birmingham Southern College because they have a high acceptance into medical school, so that's why I went there. Took a Drawing 1 course. I did not know that I could draw, and found out that I was really good at observational drawing. The first week in the class, the professor said, "Why are you not an art major?" And I said, I guess I am now. And I went and changed my major immediately. So the work that I got started doing was like observational ballpoint pen drawings. And now this is not a skill that I have technically expertly crafted, but in the beginning stages, never having drawn before, it was like shocking to me to be able to draw like this. I got into portraiture, all ballpoint pen. This is actually a charcoal drawing that I did for Jake one year for Christmas because he's so obsessed with Rocky. But this is kind of like the work that I got started doing, and then I got really, I didn't feel fulfilled in the work that I was doing. I got really bogged down by it. I felt like I was just copying the world. I didn't feel like I was actually being creative. Like, I didn't feel like I was actually bringing anything new into the world. I felt like I was just, just felt like I was just copying. And I wanted to feel like an artist, like I was making something new. So this is like a ballpoint pen drawing of a C-clamp. So I was just copying normal everyday objects. So after having a lot of chats with all my professors, I decided I'm going to try to do abstract work. I did not get the best feedback. It wasn't bad. I have a few pictures of some of the stuff that I did. It's not bad work, but for me, I think it came across, it wasn't my authentic self. It wasn't something that I was happy with, and everyone could tell. So I did really bright colors, triangles, forms, and what's cool is to look back and see the similarities and the evolution of my work, like what got started in the beginning to where it's at now, and how it's all part of an ongoing process. Everything kind of builds upon each other. But I was not happy with this work. And I actually started doing all these triangles and shapes, and I got a tattoo to commemorate a time where I took a risk, went after abstract work. It was kind of scary just because my mind had never worked like that before, and I was in classes with people who had been drawing and painting and making art like out of the womb. You know, like they went to ASFA. This is what they had always been doing. They knew how to talk about art, and I was the complete opposite. And so it was a very hard thing for me to do in that moment, but it was really important, because if I had never taken that step, taken that risk, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now today in my art journey. One day I just got fed up. I had like a research thesis already prepared going into my last semester, looking at preparing, like we're supposed to do like a 30-minute presentation on our work, doing a show. I had already prepared everything on this kind of work, and I just did not feel good about it. And I think like a week before the semester started, I got fed up. One day I saw in the corner of my studio some wire left over from a previous senior who had been working with wire with her pieces. She was doing like fencing, sculptures, and things like that. So one day I just said, like, screw it. And I took the fencing, the wired material. I had some unstretched canvas that was just like ready to go to frame another piece, and I just decided to start threading the wire through the canvas. I just started doing something. I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know if it was going to lead anywhere, but it was a change, and it was something to get me out of the just negative space and the creative blocks that I was in, and feeling like I wasn't creating work that I really loved. And I ended up creating this piece completely different than the work I had been creating. I blasted Metallica, and once I had threaded the wire through, you can't really see it too good in these pictures because they're very old and I took them on a very crappy iPhone camera back then. And I just decided I'm gonna do everything completely different than what I had been doing because it's not working. I made this piece and I stepped back, and I had this just like aha moment of just like creative breakthrough. Do you guys experience those creative blocks? Really, they can seem like the most daunting, hardest, driest seasons in your work, and it's so difficult, but when you finally break through, it is kind of a euphoric feeling. It's wonderful to get to this place. But my professors saw this and they were like, who did this? And I was like, it was me. And they were like, I don't think so. That doesn't look like something you would make. But they were just really shocked, because they were like, this feels like you. This looks like someone who was confident about what they were doing, and before I wasn't. So that was able to come across in my work. And then I started getting into just other kinds of different materials. I had this painting that I had done that was, just colorful, it was unstretched canvas. I hated it, and I decided I'm just going to rip it to shreds. So this string that you see is a previous ripped up canvas that I took and made into another work of art. So in the creative process, there's so many things that can bog you down. There's so many blocks, so many hurdles that you have to come over, and really it just boils down to keep working. You have to keep working, and then you have to sort of shock your system, give yourself new experiences, get yourself into using new materials to make something, that's to get you through that space. And this was all new work that I had been doing for my senior presentation. So I did all of this work in one semester. So just a few weeks, because we had to be done just a little over halfway before the semester was done. I found this fencing material, again, left over by another senior. The unstretched canvas came on a cardboard roll. Can you hear me okay, Seth? The unstretched canvas came on like a cardboard roll, like almost like toilet paper roll or wrapping paper or something like that. And I decided, I kind of felt like I was in another block. I decided, all right, well, I'm gonna rip it up. And so I had this giant pile of almost like leaves of cardboard that I had deconstructed and ripped up, and then found this fencing material and like made art with it. So no matter what your resources are, your materials are, you can make do with anything that you've got.
How did you get all those pieces to stay in there?
I just threaded them through. Yep, threaded them through. And what's interesting about this piece, this was more of like a temporary installation for me. I ended up keeping this piece. It wasn't really getting much use out of it. And again, later on, another creative block that I ended up coming to when I came upon sawdust, which is the main material that I'm using now. I had this wired fencing piece, and I decided to take out all the cardboard, so it's just the pure material that like I buy it in Home Depot now. And that same wired fencing actually went to make y'all's piece for your space. So everything in your creative process, in your journey, it all builds on each other. So it's just a matter of like taking things and looking at them in a completely new way when you're experiencing a struggling time in your process. Let's see. Can anyone take a guess at how I made this piece? Any guess? I know the picture quality is bad, but it was, I think, from 2016. It's just unstretched canvas with something on it. No, so what is it?
It's the stuff I took out.
Yeah. Well, this actually ended up being a really successful piece by my professors, and the way that I made it was I'd taken a really thin unstretched canvas material. I'd never done this before, and I tacked it up to our wall in my school studio space, painted acrylic paint on like a wall roller, and came back 2 days later after it had dried, and it had adhered itself to the wall in our gallery space at school. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, shit. And I started pulling it off and realized the wall was coming off with it, and ended up using like like wall putty spatula thing to like get it off. And then this was the back of it that was stuck to the wall, and ran in and told my professors, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Had to fix the whole wall and everything, but I mean, I got art out of it, and I chose to look at it instead of a failed piece as artwork. So I just thought that was a funny story, and that was a horrible feeling when that first peel and the walls coming off. They were so pissed. They were so pissed. And here's another wire piece. So again, like I would thread the wire through, throw on Metallica or Pearl Jam or any kind of rock music. I feel like I should be a rock star. Like I think in another life I would be a rock star if I could sing. But I can't sing. Jake can sing, but I can kind of play the drums, play the guitar. I don't know. I'm definitely a rocker, old soul. So to continue on and like how I got to the pieces that I'm doing now, that was kind of like my foundation throughout school, and now I'm out of school trying to figure out, am I an artist? I still even then question, am I an artist? And I went a little crazy thinking I'm still gonna go to medical school with an art degree, or I'm going to get into financial planning. Like I went crazy, and I was really just trying to run from the fact that I was an artist. At Forstall Art Center, which is where I used to have an old studio space, I came across this little box that was just sitting outside of the elevator one day, and it was just a bunch of sawdust, and I was like, hey, are you guys gonna throw this away? And they said, yeah, I mean, we're throwing it away. I was like, well, can I have it? And I ended up just working with it, creating like this piece. I now create this piece with it. Most of what my brand is kind of founded on now. It's like my starting point of my creative career coming out of college. So I got started by taking oil paint, like the little tubes of oil paint, squeezing it in, and then molding it and working it into the sawdust. And then I probably used about 20 tubes of oil paint on this one painting, and it started to get really expensive, but I could see it was working, and I was using unstretched or shredded up canvas. So I'm still using some of the same materials just in different ways and applying it to the surface. So I find a material, I work with it, I play with it, I experiment with it. I'm not scared to try something crazy with it, and you just see what works. But then from there, it's about increasing efficiency. So using 20 tubes of oil paint is not cost effective. It was not efficient with my time at all. I probably spent months working on this one piece and building it just because it was just just took so long to dry in the process, and even mentally the way that I felt about it, but kept going with it. Now I buy gallons of paint at Sherwin-Williams. I'm doing a piece for BJ and Courtney. I've already used 2 gallons of paint on it. Take the sawdust, mix it up, and I can spread it, and it's a lot more free form, and I can go much more freer like within my process. So the sawdust, and then again that grid wired fencing ends up coming to this piece. So this is the bulk of what my work looks like now. But what I want to say is every single person in business, whether you're a surgeon, whether you're in accounting, whether you're doing videography, and you are a quote-unquote creative, everyone is an artist, and everyone can benefit from having an artistic process that they implement in their work and in their lives. So it's in blocks, it's just about continuing to move forward, continuing to look at things in new ways, and like the process is what leads you to the breakthrough. So if I would have stopped at any point and been like, oh, like I suck, I'm just not good at art, and stopped, like I wouldn't be doing work that I absolutely love, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't be talking to you guys about this. So your attitude towards a process is always going to determine your success in that process. So it's all based on having just an artist mentality of like, no matter what it takes, I'm gonna figure it out, and no matter what it takes, I'm gonna get through it. And you really just do that. Like, has anyone read The War of Art? Really good book, incredibly good book for creatives, but it's just, there's always going to be resistance, and it's just a matter of like continuing to press forward. So let's see. Yeah, and to another point too, you know, you get all this training, you have foundations. I had a foundation of painting and sculpting, and like I knew what to do. I knew to take oil paint and take a brush and put it to a canvas. But at some point, you've got the learning, you've got the foundation, you've got the training. At some point, you've got to trust your gut, and you've got to trust your intuition. And so if there's something that you know, when inspiration strikes, you've got to be ready for it, and you've got to take hold of it and put it into action like as soon as possible. So yeah, just about like looking at your work, looking at life's problems in an unconventional way. And genuinely, like art is the most directly, like I directly create a product and I directly assign the value to it. And so art is just a bigger picture of life and a bigger picture of business. So whatever product you're creating, whatever video you're creating, whatever marketing campaign you're creating, you apply the value to it, and you give the value to the world. So it's, you know, it's just, I feel like I'm like Nick Saban up here and just saying like just trust the process, but it really is like just trust the process. Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. So you know, you kind of said your artistic path changed when you discovered the wire.
Yes.
When you started playing with the wire. One of the questions you had is, do you consider yourself an artist?
Yes.
So I think because you do artistic things does not mean you're an artist, in my opinion. So like, I think artists are one that put feeling into work and that you get feeling out of work. So because anybody can grab a paintbrush and anybody can put paint on a canvas.
Right.
Anybody can play piano, but you don't call every piano player an artist,
Right.
right? Because it's their expressiveness or the way you feel when you hear the music or the way they put themselves into music. So when you were going through your process, as you know, here I have this wire, and you talked a little bit about it. And one thing you talk about a lot is sort of making accidental discoveries, so that these accidents sort of lead places that you work.
Mm-hmm.
That comes up a lot over and over in your theme, by the way. But when you're working with that, are you thinking process first, like what should I do with this wire, or are you thinking what am I feeling and how does that become expressed through that?
So that's a great question. Yes, makes sense. So I tend to work based on gut, based on intuition, thinking about the process, and then it's almost after I make the work that I feel like it's revealed like what I was feeling and thinking making that work, if that makes sense. So I go about it, so I don't approach my art necessarily with feeling. Does anyone know the Enneagram? Some of you guys? If you don't, personality test, so I'm a 5. 5s are very like scientific, observational. That's how I approach my art, but there is an emotional component to it. But yes, I completely agree with you of just like it, and I think that there are certain gifts given in terms of being an artist, but what I'm trying to say is more so just everyone is a creative, you know, and everyone has an artist in them to create something. You know, it's not always going to be composing a song, it's not always going to be composing a work of art, but whatever it is, like everyone has something inside of them creatively that they have to share with the world. How do you feel about that?
I feel that there's a difference between being creative and being an artist. I think you can be creative and not be an artist.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes, I do agree that everybody has creativity, but I don't agree that
Everybody's an artist. Okay. What was that study that you guys talked about when kids were asked in a classroom, like how many of you guys, can you share that?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact study, but it was basically, the gist of it was, if you ask a group full of kindergartners who in here is an artist, everyone will raise their hand. Then you ask them again in 3rd grade, and a few less will raise their hand. By the time they get to be seniors in high school, almost nobody's raising their hand anymore. And if you ask an adult, nobody feels like they're an artist.
Yeah.
I think this is a little bit of a unique place in that we're creatives and we feel like we do create things that some other
Yeah.
So the reason I was asking you that is because sometimes I feel like when I approach a project,
Yeah.
that I have the feeling of where I want it to go before I know how to get there.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like intuitively, I feel like it should feel a certain way, and then I sort of figure out how to get myself there.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it goes the other way, where you start playing with the materials and then the feeling.
Yeah.
emerges, right?
But see, it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's where it's important to find your own process in it, your own creative process, and like how you work best. But no, I mean, I do agree with you. But I do think everyone's, do what?
It's not a right or wrong answer.
Yeah, exactly. I do think everyone's an artist in terms of, I view life as just art and art as life. So you're an artist creating your life, you know, like, and you know, we weren't created like God created us, or if you don't believe in a God, like you didn't create yourself. You weren't your own origin. Something else acted upon you and created you. And every single choice that you make in your day-to-day life, whether you're a mom, the art of raising a kid, the artistic process of raising a kid, the artistic process of starting your business and owning a business, and just the process of creating a marketing project, like you create the life that you want. And I think that's what being an artist is all about. I think creativity, I think artists are people who are constantly going after generating and cultivating new ideas in their life and being innovative and never being like truly happy with change, like real true artists. I feel like when you reach success as an artist, it's like you've continued to evolve, you've continued to change, you haven't stayed stagnant, and you've continued to add value to the world. And so that's where I think every single person is an artist. It's just, what is your art? But I think, you know, art is life. Life imitates art. Like, I'm definitely one of those people. I just think everything's connected, you know? Yes?
I was just wondering, how did you know that this was kind of like your settling point, like this is the material that you wanted to do all of your art with?
It's not. It is right now, but I'm continuing to change, continuing to find new materials. But okay, so here's where it is. The sawdust, like, it just like hit me, and it just really connected with me. So the sawdust it's a throwaway material. It's the scraps of a carpenter or woodworker's work, and they literally set it outside their doors. They put it in dumpsters, and I go pick it up and I create art with it. So I just loved that I'm taking the scraps of another's work or taking a throwaway material and I'm going on to make art with it. So yeah, but I like to continue to introduce new products, but the sawdust, it did hit me on an emotional level.
Like, do you feel like you like doing like a lot of work because you feel like this is like a material that you do really well with, or do you just kind of like keep working with things you're really fascinated with it?
Both. So I really love it, and I really like, in my process, like I found over time and throughout college and even now that when I use a tool to create art, so like a brush or a pencil or something, personally, and it's a feeling, I feel like it removes me from the material and it removes me from my artistic process. Like I like to work with my hands, so like I like working to this, I put the sawdust and I get to feel it on the canvas. And sometimes I sculpt it, so this part of this was some of it was sculpting, and then I sculpt it on there, and then I print the grid on there. But yeah, I feel like sometimes I can get too removed from my art unless I'm hands-on with it.
So when you do the sawdust, are you like, by no means it's a haphazard, but are you like creating, are you thinking through like what you want to create? Like that one right there looks good.
Yes.
It looks like that, almost looks like someone's holding up an iPhone to their face or something. But like that one looks, I don't know, you know what I mean? Are you thinking
Yeah.
about what it's going to be, or you just kind of like, you do it and you're like, damn, that's done? Or do you
Each piece, I have a lot of moments that are like that, where it's almost like I create something and I step back and I'm like, how did I do that? Or like it's a successful piece or a piece that I can say, you know, no work of art, I think everyone, you know, you guys can relate projects, you're just like, I don't know if this is finished. You can always do something to it, you can always work on it. But when I say a product is, or a piece is finished, it really is kind of like a gut. But some pieces I step back from, I'm like, how did I do that? And I think I look at it and I look at the composition and everything, I'm like, well, I've been trained to do this. Like I was taught how to do this, and now it's just kind of in me. And so it's a combination of like my training and foundations with my intuition, my feeling, but sometimes I do have a picture ahead of time, something I want to create. But more often than not, if I have a clear-cut visual picture of something that I do want to create, and I'm like, I want it to look exactly like this, it never ends up looking like that. And it always ends up being something that like I refine and I have to tweak later on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the things Caitlin hit on a bit is that your work is constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. I imagine if you came back in 3 years, 5 years, what you're showing us doesn't look like this.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this right now is sort of on brand for what you do. How do you balance that with if somebody fell in love with the wire pieces that you did and came to you now and said, I want to commission something
Right.
like that? Are you able to retroactively go back and kind of create that again, or are you just sort of like, this is the path that I'm on and you gotta jump on that?
I think I absolutely would. I don't know if I would go back to them in terms of like creating series and what like me as an artist is working on, but you know, like if I'm living as an artist in my career, like I do have to make money. So but those pieces felt like me. They authentically felt like me. Now, I don't think I can ever go back and create a piece exactly how it was. I think the art kind of takes its own like identity in space and time. That is what it is.
I guess what I'm trying to get at
Yes.
is if you had to go back and do that, would it feel like I'm regressing?
No,
Or would it feel like this is cool, I can go back and even add some of what you learned in this process
Yes.
to that?
I think that, you know,
And I ask that because I'm trying to apply some of this to what we do, and it's
Right.
like somebody sees a video that we did for a client 3 years ago, and we've evolved beyond that now, but they see that and kind of ask for it, and how do we pull them along with us?
Right.
The evolution we've gone through, but in a way that still delivers on what they're looking
Exactly. This is a good point. So if someone approached me with a commission to do like an old like wire canvas piece, it's going to be a lot different now than it was then. But I would be happy to go back to it because it really felt like it's work that I've created, and I think it would be a fun revisitation, almost just to see how far you've come. But I would just let the client know, like, look, like this is where my work's at now, and that work was kind of in its own time, and like it's hard to recreate works exactly like they were because it kind of pulls the beauty out of it. in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because that was what it was in that time.
I had the chance to go to the Picasso Museum in Spain
Yeah.
this year and to go through the evolution of his work, and it's very realistic at the beginning, and then when he sort of found that moment of this abstract feeling that is ownable, I guess, is there a tipping point where like you couldn't go back and do something because it just doesn't feel like you?
Yeah, I don't know.
But
see,
to see like the evolution of this. That
It probably comes like when
totally
you hang
different.
your hat on too, right? Like Picasso,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that to be Picasso. Like
Well-
people recognize him for that one thing, and it's like to go back would be like, no.
Maybe
It almost
this
it
is-
dings his brand.
yeah.
It's like, why would it now?
Maybe this is a better way to ask the question. Do you think you'll ever land on something where it's like this is what I'm going to be known for, and this is what I'm going to be doing within a certain?
I can't really answer that. I hope that I never get to a point where I'm making the same work over and over and over again. So I hope.
What was the first thing that you said you didn't like about art? Was that you were just copying?
Yeah.
You'd be copying
I don't want to copy myself.
I would guess that, funny enough, there was an interesting psychology in that early work because you were tearing up the materials.
Mm-hmm.
You were expressing the frustration of what was going on in the artwork through that work.
Yep.
Tearing up the pieces, reassembling it.
Yep. And see, I think that's important. So a lot of artists, like their ego gets in the way of creating work. So, and I don't know this at all about Picasso, but if he's getting to this point where he's like, this is me, I've reached my best work, then I feel like when you have ego in your creative sphere and your creative work, it brings fear in of like, oh, like I've already reached my greatest work. This is what I'm best known for. It's like the fear of like, how can I continue to go on to create if I feel like I've reached it? What's the point in continuing to go on? And it's like, well, the point is the process more than the finished product for me personally as an artist. So I would hope that I would never continue to just make the same work over and over again.
Jason actually had a really good answer
Yes.
to the, would you go back and make the wire thing? It's like, you know what, I really feel like I'm moving on, and then, oh, well, I'll give you 10 grand for a wire piece. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really starting to feel wire again.
Yeah, but see,
What kind of wires on it? Copper?
Gold-plated?
It's like.
Ashley has a question.
Yes, Ashley.
So looking at your older stuff, I'm sure a lot of it was like project, like assignments from your professors.
Yes.
I also got my BFA, and like I know looking back on older work, it's super cringeworthy. And you said you saw The Wire, but was there a specific artist, like your work kind of seems Andy Goldworthy / Agnes Martin?
yes. So yeah, there was a lot of research that went into it, and I came from science, math background, so it's almost like all I knew how to do was research, and I was extremely uncomfortable with the emotional, like raw creation aspect of art. So with the bad stuff, or what I call my bad stuff, because I didn't love it, like the colorful things that just didn't feel like me, I had like hardly any like artist inspirations. Like I was just kind of looking at cheesy art. Well, I was looking at cheesy art on Pinterest that was colorful, and I'm like, I guess this is what I'm supposed to make. And I actually tried to imitate Bob, the happy tree. Bob Ross. I went blank on his name. I tried to imitate some of his like landscapes just to kind of like, I don't know, try something new. And I was like, this is not me at all. But it was a fun experiment. So once I started getting kind of into that like more aggressive style work, black and white, I was looking a lot at Alberto Burri. I don't know if you know him as an artist. I really started to get into looking at Rosie Kaiser. I didn't know who Cy Twombly was or Franz Klein until I started kind of making those pieces. And so yes, they influenced my work. So, and that's another thing too, inspiration comes from literally everywhere. Everywhere. You can find inspiration everywhere. I have been doing a fun little experiment recently, kind of on social media, on my Instagram. I've been posting stories of little snapshots of things in Birmingham, like just wall, ground, or anything. And I will have some people message me and saying like, wow, this is amazing. And I'm like, it's at the side of a dumpster. Like literally that happened. Like I posted a picture on the side of a dumpster, and it was just like, there was like, I really don't know if it was bird shit or if it was paint, but it was like, you can find art, you can find the inspiration in it. And someone messaged me saying, wow, this is so beautiful. And I said that it's a dumpster, like, Yeah, or somebody said, this piece is beautiful. I'm like, it's literally a wall in Birmingham on a building that's not even being used. So it's been a really interesting, fun social media experiment. Yes.
What's your favorite piece that you've ever done?
I really can't answer that. It's like asking me like what my favorite band is. Well, just kidding, I can't answer that. Favorite song, Pearl Jam, but I can't nail down my favorite song by them. Jake loves the Monster. He calls it the Monster. So have you guys been to Revelator recently? Revelator downtown? I've just put up a really big piece of work there. Jake nicknamed it the Monster because he thinks it looks like a monster. But see, we've been talking a lot, and like Jake is a very non-artistic minded person, and I've been able to kind of like, I had my guiding myself through being an artistic person to be able to talk about art, and then I got to do that with Jake too. But see, the point of like abstract work, non-objective work, is to not see anything figurative in it really. And so he's always like, this reminds me of this, this reminds me of this. I'm like, that's not the point. But it was fun. What was the last question? Oh, favorite piece. I really don't. I don't have a favorite piece. I can't nail it down.
You were talking about earlier that one of the main ways that you get through kind of creative block, like a time where you're not feeling creative or you can't get out of yourself what you're trying to, that the key to that is you have to just push through it, and you said kind of like shock the system.
Yes.
So are there any kind of tips or techniques or things that you do to shock the system, so to speak, to get your creative juices back going?
I just keep working. So I never allow myself to stop working. So you want to, I don't know, just kind of like throw in the towel and get frustrated and like go home and like take a break. But when I'm feeling those moments, I will at least like, I'll do a drawing, or I will just, if it's a piece that's particularly frustrating me and I can't get, I will rip it up. I'll rip it up, I'll start new, I'll start fresh, or I'll take the ripped up pieces and that becomes a material. Or something I do to shock the system too is like going to see something new, like just going on a walk and looking at walls and the ground in Birmingham. And something else I'll do to shock the system is trying to do a new material. So lots of times I will literally just go in Home Depot and walk around and look and see like, is there something that I could use, and then I take it home and I just experiment with it and I play with it. Another thing too, I think that's really helpful, so if you're not like an artist, to continue to get your creative juices flowing, like to have something, if you're doing accounting here or whatever, to have something that is creative in your life, whether that's writing, like you're writing poetry, you're gonna go home and you're draw, you're gonna learn the guitar, cooking. So cooking is like another sort of like creative break for me. If I really ever do need a creative break, I'll get into cooking and kind of absorb myself in that for an evening, and then I feel like I'm much more refreshed, ready to come back the next day. But I think it's really important with your art to not look at it, or like your work, to not look at it as your identity. So like don't view it as like a little baby, like your child. That can be, again, I feel like that's where ego gets in, and if you see your identity in your work, then you're not going to be able to continue to produce it. It kind of goes back again to ego and how, you get to this certain point and you can't keep producing. But yes, you had.
Kind of on the opposite of that, do you have any sort of like routine or ritual that you do like kind of before getting into art? Like do you like to listen to music? Do you like drinking coffee before?
Yes. So I plan out my day hour by hour, pretty much, loosely. So I'm really careful about what's going into my mind and what's going into my brain. Like before I create, I think it's really important to keep your mind clear, because, like just having a blank canvas in front of you, whatever you're thinking about, the visualization of it, now it's probably not going to turn out exactly like your visualization, but whatever you're thinking about, like if you're thinking, I don't know, gray, cloudy, stormy landscape, like you're going to make a gray, cloudy, stormy landscape. So it's really important to look at what you're what's going into your brain, what your thoughts are, because whatever that is like that's what you're going to create. So I like to listen to music. I listen to audiobooks actually a lot and podcasts, like when I'm working, when it's a little bit more mindless, and it's kind of day by day and piece by piece and act by act of if it's more like I'm feeling it and it's an intuition, feeling, gut thing, then like I listen to music or I have silence. If it's more of like that just process, chipping away, like deconstructing materials or kind of just like putting in the work, then I just like throw on podcast or something like audiobook or something. I read a lot, so did that answer your question at all? I don't know, coffee. Sometimes in the evening, like a glass of wine, like while I'm working, is like a really helpful like ritual just to get my mind relaxed, focused, and zoned in. Almost like when you're at a party and you know you need something to hold in your hand. It kind of helps like that. Did I answer your question? Does anybody else have anything?
One of the things that, as you talk, that I think about is, one of the things I wrestle with personally is what of value am I providing to the world? And, you know, I like, you say you don't find your identity in your work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I agree with you. But to be fulfilled in work, it's like, it's always wrestling with, what does this mean? Like, what am I doing that actually matters in the world?
Yep.
And I think the cool thing about art is that, you know, when you did you offered something to the world with that piece. You gave something to the world, and I think in what we do from a creative standpoint, because it can become so corporate sometimes, like you produce a logo for somebody or you did whatever, it seems like not as valuable an artistic contribution to the world as what that is. But really, I think it is though, because like I think about the Red Tails logo that you did and the story behind that, and you know there's meaning and all this stuff. Like I love, like Kyle's really good at that. Where you like, let me tell you why that's in there. You know, and I guess what I'm saying is, even though what we do here is not necessarily art in that way,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that. I mean, I could point to a million different examples. We walk by the Ogre logo every day, and like the brand behind that, the thought behind that, ship like a boss, like that is art. It makes people feel something.
I
Yeah.
almost texted you this last night. I was at the Gavin DeGraw concert at Avondale Brewery, and the guy in front of me had on an Oz Trail shirt with an 88 hat, and in the distance was the Avondale logo. Three things that we did, like right there in front of me that nobody else would even think about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not art for art's sake either. It's art for sake of commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're applying identity to someone else or a company or something.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is, you can find a piece of yourself looking at organic art.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different experience.
Yeah,
is
I
what
think
it
half
is.
the art that we do is also the art of selling, because we're trying to
Yeah.
create something that
People will.
classic thing about like the Nike logo, right? Like no one sits down and draws a stick for $500 and 300 lifetime of the shoes, and that becomes like the most recognizable logo in the world. Right? At the time, it was like, okay, how do we sell this through? How do we get them to buy this? What's the story?
Yeah.
You know, strategically thinking through. I think that's what we do really well. That's part of our art, where you make this amazing piece and someone walks up and goes, I don't get it, I don't want it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Someone's like,
Exactly.
Oh my God. So it's kind of up to them. If you don't have to sell it to anybody.
Yeah.
You just hope that someone
But
buys it.
and that's another point too, why it's important for me not to find my identity in my work.
Yeah.
Because if I did, then I would be basing the way that I view myself on other people's reaction to what I create.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's for us. Like you don't put that together, then put together a 362-page keynote telling us exactly what materials you used, and then actually, oh, you don't like that option? Here's option 2.
Yeah.
This one I use metal shape.
But see, I do that a little bit with my clients. So like they come to me, they approach me, and they're like, "Hey, I really like this piece that you did. Like, can we do a commission?" And so I'm in some way like I'm working at trying to sell my art too. So I'm trying to walk the line of like actual art and like my business side and selling my business, and I'm trying my best to marry those without sacrificing one or the other. Mm-hmm. So.
I guess what it made me think of is like when you produce these things for people, especially I think the commissions, where somebody's like comes to you and says, I want you to create something for me, that's going to always mean something to them because they know the story behind it. They have either invested in it not just financially but emotionally and all
Yep.
of that. And what it made me realize is like the things that we do mean stuff to people too. Somebody went to Oz Trails and they had an experience, and now they have this T-shirt that has the brand behind it. Like that means something to them. I mean, think about this T-shirt. It means something to me because I was turned on to Aviate when I was living in DC, and I missed Birmingham. And then I come across this thing that so there's like an emotion behind it, and I think we probably forget about that sometimes because we're just like banging
Yeah.
stuff out. It's like this stuff actually means something to people. It symbolizes an experience they had, an emotion that they had, whatever. And there is like artistic value that we're giving to the world because of that stuff.
But even me, I struggled with the value that I had being an artist. Like I struggled with the value of art. Like, am I really an artist? Is this really something I can sell? And I really struggled with the fact that like I kind of felt like, oh, I'm making work like almost like selfishly, like this is work that I'm making from me. And I just kind of struggled with selling it, of just like, is it valuable? And I had this huge shift when I decided like, I'm not gonna focus on just like making art, but my mindset's gonna be what kind of value can I add to other people's lives into the world. And I thought about just me making art for our home and just how that made us feel and the value that added to our lives and our home. And I realized like, no, like I have tremendous value that I can add to people and to their lives. And then, trying to come up with pricing art too, trying to come up with pricing yourself as a brand and like the creative work you do is really challenging and it's really difficult. And lots of things went into it. But for me, I just try to directly relate it to the value that I feel like I'm giving someone right now in my stage and the career where I'm at. Yeah. I have the monster piece. This is Jake's favorite piece that he nicknamed the monster that's in Revelator right now. And now I can't unsee it. So maybe it's like not my favorite piece anymore, I don't know. But so I wanted you guys to kind of see too, like the evolution. So if you go back and look at the, let's see. No, wait. So if you go back and look at this and you kind of look at the form here and you look at the fencing and how it's just showing back up in this. And so it for me, it's all just like built upon itself, and I'm continuing to look at building. And again, the wired canvas pieces I was doing, they kind of come into, this is something else I'm doing right now too. And then the ripped up canvas string I combined with the sawdust to make this piece, which if you've ever been to Honey Creeper Chocolate, don't raise your hands because, I go there every day. But this is in Honey Creeper Chocolate in Basic right now in the back of their store, hanging above that like couch. You've been there? You're nodding your head.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's different.
That's on Morris, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just really cool to look back at your work and to see how things have continued to influence you and continue to influence the work that you're creating now. And then, so from the ripped up wall piece that I did, I'm starting to do something kind of similar. And so I found a more replicable process of like, without destroying a wall. So I've kind of like been experimenting. So for this piece is I did have like an intention of like, I kind of want to go back. I really did. I kind of revisited that and I was like, I really want to replicate this process. Like, how can I do it? And I kind of am figuring that out right now. So I'm in process with this process. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, you create your life, you create your business, you create like your work that the person you want to be is directly related to the work that you do today. And looking at providing value to clients and continuing to be innovative, like it just comes with just continuing to work, continuing to look at things unconventionally, and really just committing yourself to being a creative person. And yes, BJ.
I only know this because we're so close, but and I could be wrong, but I know that you in the mornings, you have the little thing when you circle that you're gonna have the happy face every day.
Yeah.
In your process, like how much does your attitude control?
Oh, completely. Controls everything. It controls everything about how a piece comes out. And even if a piece comes out that's like successful, if I didn't have the right mindset behind it going into it, then like I'm gonna hate it. Or it's not gonna feel right to me or look right to me. So yeah, I have my little like, I plan out my days like hour by hour, and it's just like a planner I bought like, I don't remember where, off Amazon or something, and it has like the date, and then it has like, it says like, how are we feeling today, and it has like emojis of like a happy face, a okay face, and an unhappy face, and like I was Marco Poloing Courtney and BJ, and I was like, here's my little planner, I circle the happy face no matter what's going on, like even if I'm I don't know, it's a really silly little choice that I make every single day to remind me of like, no, like I'm gonna choose the attitude that I have. Like artist, you're directly creating whatever you want in life, like whatever you focus on, you're creating more of. And so mindset's everything. And I mean, artists can't make art, like a sculptor can't sculpt a sculpture without first having that sculpture in mind, loosely at least. And yeah, when I was frustrated, those pieces came out extremely frustrated to work. They felt kind of angry to me. There was even this one piece I didn't include on here, but I took like a plywood thing and ended up literally beating it with a hammer to get like a jagged edge. But yeah, that's just what it takes, you know? It takes that sometimes, and continuing to push forward and go forward in your creative process.
I think it's interesting. I always, especially where I'm at, and I know I talk to creatives, especially in the professional creative field,
Mhm.
where you are relying on commissions. You have to make money
Yeah.
to do it, but you don't want to necessarily lose that like organic process and the nature of the thing that actually
Yep.
made you fall in love with creating art.
Exactly.
And creating fine art was like one of the funnest things to do, because there is a lot of like risk and personal feeling and time that you have to put into it. But coming into a place like an advertising agency where it is like go all day long,
Yeah.
create all day long, not for yourself, for someone else. I think what you hit on the point of balancing your commissioned work life with the organic, fun, experimental, still creating for myself life
Yep.
is extremely
You need to have that.
important. And it's really hard to balance, but I think it's, something for all of us to keep in mind of just making sure you take time for yourself outside to create for you.
Yes.
Because it can be kind of like soul sucking sometimes when you're just so in the mode of creating for someone else.
But see, it's like you have to do that, because like what's the point of producing value like if it's not going to prove valuable to anyone? And I think in that way it kind of gets into setting your clients up for like realistic expectations, or like personally for me in my creative work, I have to say, look, like I can get this style or I can get this vibe or whatever, but like I am an artist and I'm creating something, and it's a collaborative space. So they come to me and they say, this is kind of what I'm wanting. But if they tell me like, do a bright pink this, I'm like, no, like that's just not me, you can go somewhere else to another artist for that.
Yeah.
Or, there's this one artist that I know that they literally do like planning stages. They do like a paper piece and they do paper studies and they send that off to the client. It gets approval. They send off like color swatches and that gets approval. That is absolutely not me. And I think it's very hard. That works for them. It's very hard for me to do that in a creative work business. But I just kind of let my clients know that there is some leeway. Like you're paying for an original work of mine. It's going to be that in some way. But at the same time, still delivering on what they ask for and what they want.
Yeah. It gets tricky in the commercial world because when they're giving us money in clips, like they're saying that they're going to pay us this much for you to do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, yeah.
Make it red, make it bigger.
Pink is my favorite color.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't do that with like if someone was like pink, but if someone's like, can you paint me a black square? I mean, have I ever painted a black square? I'm like, yeah, sure.
Well, but I think that's also part of it too, is that they are paying for you and your style. And
Yes.
that's where you do have to be in your creative artist life. That's where you have to set that line. Whereas for us, we're kind of meant to be, we have to be adaptable.
Yes, you
have
do.
to- have to
Way
change.
further out there.
Yeah, yes, your line's way further out there. But I feel like the important, like the right perspective to have is not about like, the money that you're getting, but like really like the value that you're giving. Like that's the important perspective to have. And I think that makes the line a lot clearer.
And Shannon, there's a big question, like in the art world, is like, why is that art? And a lot of people
Yes.
will argue, is it conceptual? If it's not art. And one thing that you and Kyle are really good at is like doing the research and like, while it's not the traditional art, it's not a painting or whatever, we're making something conceptual.
Mhm.
So a lot of people would say that it's art.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that the process, as you said, like, is a huge part of it for me. And like even if the final product isn't something we were like, yep, that like this is more like a personal project, love this final logo, wow, the process still can speak to like ourselves. And we
Yeah.
had a great time making it. We collaborated, we did
Yep.
research. And so to me that gives it that meaning, it gives it the purpose, gives it the value. Yes, the final product maybe not exactly what we wanted, but it's still like staying true to ourselves because we did
Yeah.
use that creative process.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not about pursuing perfection, it's about pursuing excellence. And I think you hit right on that.
It's interesting you say you detach your identity from your work because the value of your work is absolutely attached to your identity, and hopefully that's something that we can do here. Like we won't be able to seek out Telegraph as a brand to create something because
Yeah.
there's value associated with the people that are doing that.
Yeah.
Just like people would seek you out to do a piece because it's an original from you,
Yes.
not just
Anybody else?
It's a perfect intersection of the IKEA, right? Between what we
Yeah.
love and getting paid to do.
yeah.
Yep.
And another interesting thing, this is the transition that we're in, but just from a, I've said this to a few, like, if we're putting a proposal together, we're trying to move from selling hours to selling the value of who we are and what we do. And getting out of that world of, I'm gonna tell you what
Right.
it is, how many hours it takes, but this is what you pay us to do this, and the value that we're bringing is the expertise and the abilities that this team has.
Basically bring
Yep.
our brand to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yep. Yeah, I think brand and identity are two very different things. So like you're selling your brand and people are coming to you for your brand, and your brand is in your work. And art, like I am creating this like from my soul, but I don't find my identity in it. I don't place my worth on the worth of my work, if that makes sense. Again, because if people reacted poorly to it, like what would I think about myself? So
Yeah, your art definitely reflects you. Like you, right now, you're matching your art.
I know. I used to dress in all black too. So it's like I don't know. I continue to change. I feel like I've been telling Jake I feel a black phase kind of making a resurgence. But yeah, it tends to like reflect like the way that I think, the way that I dress, even I don't even know, maybe not the way I act, or maybe definitely the things I talk about, things I'm thinking about. It is very mirrored with my work. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Darcy.
Thank you guys.
Liz,
Oh, yeah.
You want to introduce this to us?
Yeah, so I made this piece for you guys, and I did have like an intention behind this piece. Well, I talked to Cliff, and I was like, I really want to do a piece for your office. Like, what is kind of your, like, what do you want? Again, we kind of did it a little bit like of a commission, but he gave me a lot more freedom than other people would with commissions, or other clients would. I knew you guys are always working in a grid and a framework, like you said. You're out there, you're churning out like ideas, and you're working with a certain system, videography, branding. Like that's a system that you have to kind of stay in certain lines. But at the same time, like I just wanted to create a reminder of like the importance of breaking that and realizing that you're not confined to those systems, and it to be a reminder for you guys just to keep pushing and keep innovating and keep creating new work and keep trying new things and pushing yourself in your creative process. And yeah, so hope you guys like it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right.
Anything else before we wrap up?
Yes.
This first question might be a little too abstract, but I don't.
It's okay. Maybe I'll be with you. Maybe I won't. It's okay. We'll try it.
So you said it comes from your gut. Like,
Yes.
do you listen to your gut, or does it come from your gut?
Do I listen to my gut or does it come from my gut?
Yeah. Is it so?
Wow, I need to
suppose the second question.
I know.
Try that again.
Is it something that you can analyze? Like, is it something that you know that, like, does it flow through you in terms of just like it surprises you once you've done it, or have you started thinking about like where that comes from?
So I've kind of answered that. So when I started creating these older works, like in college, I had absolutely no idea where they were coming from. Like this piece, I had no idea. I would say, like coming from my gut, but then looking back on it, I can analyze it. And I can analyze in that moment, like what I was thinking, what I was feeling, and how this came about. Does that answer your question? So it's both. So and I can't really say like when or why or how it's one over the other, but it is a listening to my gut and creating from my gut both simultaneously.
So emotion has nothing to do with it. It's just more of like a logistical thinking.
For me personally, yes, because that's just me. That's how I think. But art has been a way for me to, like an emotional healing for me too, because like I don't know, I struggle processing emotions. So it's like I experience the emotion, and then Jay can attest to this. It's like 2 weeks later, I'm like, okay, I think I figured out what I was feeling, 2 weeks ago. Art has been, there's certain paintings, certain works that I create where it is very emotional, but it almost connects me to my emotion, whereas I feel like if I'm detached from it, I'm not connected to it. But I approach my art in a much more analytical, like very process-oriented way. Does that answer it?
I'm like an emotional shooter, so like when I see something, I immediately feel emotion.
Yeah.
I can cry on the inside. I think it's beautiful, but then that's how I know how to target it. And
Yeah.
That's how I know how to like lock in.
Yeah.
So I was just super interested that it's almost kind of the opposite for you.
That does hit me sometimes though. Like when I see good art, like other people's art, I really I almost like cry immediately.
So like the dumpster thing, like, I would feel emotion there, and then she
Yeah. To me, it was like it was a experiment, like a social experiment. But yes, I do. I know what you mean. Like I look at that and I look at things and I'm like, oh gosh, it's art. It's wonderful. It's beautiful, and it's just here, and no one notices it.
So if Jannard's at an interest dark one,
Perfect.
somebody call him.
He's gonna all day.
He's gonna go look at your
We
dumpster.
were all very concerned.
My second question
Yes.
is, like, when do you ever feel complete with a piece? Like,
Oh no, never,
complete?
never. Oh my gosh, never. I just get to a point where I'm like, it is what it is. And there's sometimes like I've been working on it for so much, I get so frustrated. I'm like, I just have to stop. And sometimes I stop and it's finished in that moment, but then 2 months later I come back and I tweak it or I add something to it. And then other pieces, it's like, this is as finished as I feel like it can be. Because if you put a finished assignment to any work, it would just never be done,
Have you ever, like, over-finished where it...
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I'll add one more thing, kind of somewhat related to what you're talking
Mhm.
about, but we were talking about storytelling, so the power of storytelling and how that adds value to something. So the T-shirts that you guys are talking about have increased value because there's stories associated with it. Like I buy it as a souvenir because it reminds me that I went on hot springs, right? You may want to think about this in terms of how you sell your art.
Right.
Because everything that we looked at here has increased value to us because now we know the story behind it, right?
Mhm.
So I might have looked at that on my own and not known, but now that you tell me the story, it has a different meaning to it, right? So think about this: if I have a nickel in my pocket, it's really only worth 5 cents, right?
Mhm.
But to a coin collector, the nickel's from 1963.
Yeah.
A coin collector, he may say, well, that coin is worth 12 cents because they only printed 65 pages
Right.
a year as opposed to the year before. But then if I tell you the story that this coin was in JFK's pocket the day he was shot, what then has the value of that coin?
Oh,
The
a lot
story
more.
behind it is what creates the value to it.
That was a very important point.
Storytelling.
Only worth it. Awesome. Darcy, thank you.
Thank
That
you.
Was, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Well done.